The event is supposed to start at 5:30. We're at 5:32 right now. I think a good time to start. A very long good evening to one and all who is present here. Thank you for joining us for the 25th edition of Trialogue 2047. Today, we'll be discussing on the theme of Udyamita for Building Back Better, wherein we'll highlight the innovative business models which we feel should be taken ahead in our journey to India's 2047. Before I start, we would pay tribute to one of the veteran women rights activists who is not with us anymore. My request all of you to please stand up and observe a minute of silence as a tribute to Madam Ila Bhatt. A minute of silence, please. You may now please be seated. Madam Ila Bhatt had devoted her entire life to the empowerment of women. We hope that will give us some power to drive the discussions through and reach to some concrete outcomes today. Without taking much time, I would kindly request Dr. Ashok Khosla, Chairman of Development Alternatives Group, to spare a few words and welcome the participants today, sir. Over to you.
I want to welcome you all to this 25th Trialogue. It's a series of encounters that we organized over the last 3 or 4 years regularly to bring together various different voices and stakeholders to think about and exchange ideas about pressing issues of the day. It's been a very successful venture. We've had very solid input from people around the country in this series, for which we're very grateful. And we would like to continue to do this. And today, our main aim is to look at how do we bring back the kind of economy that our country deserves after having been quite heavily attacked by various natural and man-made causes. We will be talking, I hope, this afternoon about enterprises. The reason for that is that probably the most pressing need of today's India is to create jobs and to deliver basic needs products to those who got left behind. And the way to create jobs and to create and generate products and services that people need actually can best be done in a free market, democratic situation like ours through enterprises. Governments are not really good at making jobs. I mean, they do make jobs. 20 million jobs in India are basically in one form of government or another at different levels. But that is the kind of limit that I think most of us would expect. Big industry, you know, the motivation of big industry is really, and not only the motivation, but the legally required goal of private sector is to make profits. And over the years, they've found out that having large numbers of people is kind of inconvenient. People want higher wages and salaries. They want more leaves, more maternity leaves. They want all kinds of benefits, and they cost quite a lot. So big industry tends to go more and more into mechanization, into finding ways not to have to employ more people. So the 22, 25 million people who work in the big formal private sector today in our country is probably going to be the kind of limit that they're going to create jobs for. So who is going to create jobs? Probably not for profits. Probably we can't expect NGOs to make up this huge gap of 150 million, maybe closer to 200 million people that need work and the dignity of having a job to do. So today we're going to be looking at the sector of the economy that is really the only one that can come close to the numbers that we are talking about, and that's the small and medium and tiny sector of the economy. The history of small enterprises leads me to think that we have had a bit of a schizophrenic relationship with this sector, because it's been, over the decades, been given different names. It's been given different kinds of support systems by formal sectors like the government or the big business. But today we're now beginning to recognize that this is a very important area. Our organization, Development Alternatives, has been working for almost four decades on exactly this issue. How do you create a business ecosystem in which small and very small enterprises can flourish and do the two things that are important: create jobs and deliver goods and services that particularly poor people, marginalized people, communities in remote areas can benefit from. And that's where MSMEs come in. When I was younger and I was in government, we used to call them cottage industries and tiny enterprises. We had all kinds of terminology. Today, we've now settled, probably not for good enough reasons. And one of the things I hope that this afternoon we can make some contribution to, we call them MSMEs: micro, small, and medium enterprises. Now, I'm not sure that we should be wasting too much time thinking about medium enterprises, because they're really not very different from large enterprises. They have the means, the approaches, the ability to use their presence to their own advantage very well. So the second M, the medium, is not the one I think that we need to worry too much about today, simply because they're not the ones that have the kinds of issues that prevent them from fulfilling their potential for job creation, for contributing to the GDP. It's at the other end that we really have a problem, and that is that we lump together the micro into the term micro a very large range of enterprises. And Srimati Ila Bhatt, that we just paid a tribute to, was, of course, one of the original pioneers in developing this sector. The micro is really reserved by the World Bank and by international usage for very tiny industries, very tiny businesses, usually household, craft-based, traditional industries of various kinds, making products that are usually sold in the local market, and create an enormous impact on the lives of individual people, particularly women. And micro credit has been an enormous contribution to helping develop opportunities for poor people. Above the lower M, there is S, MSMEs. S is supposed to be small, but you know, by the current definition by the government, it's still quite big. The small industries, according to them, are ones that have a capital investment, a turnover of somewhere between 1 crore and 10 crores. And that's not really a small business, and it's not the one that creates large numbers of jobs. It's at the lower end of that that we really need to give a little bit of emphasis. And I hope that this evening we will be able to explore what we can do in that gap between the household industries, and what we call the small industries. And there's another M that I would suggest we start using, which above the micro, in current lingo, we would call it mini. It has been suggested that we downgrade the small micro to a nano, which is also possible, and leave micro as it is. But basically, without getting into too much detail, it's the mini that is really the engine of the economy as far as job creation is concerned. And it's the one that's missing in our terminology. It's not there. And if it's not, it doesn't have a name, it can't be addressed. There are no policies for it. There are no major financing mechanisms for it. There are no support systems for it. There's no what you might call business ecosystem for it to support it. And that is really the major tragedy of our economy, that if we do not pay attention to it because it doesn't have a name, because it's sort of forgotten, we are losing a great deal. So my own suggestion is that we still use micro as we normally do, which is usually a single or maybe two people business, and insert a new one called mini, which is a business that is an actual formal business, has machines, it's got technology, it pays taxes, it's registered, and it has somewhere between 5 and maybe 50 people working. That's not really micro, that's mini. So this arena, the micro, mini, and small, accounts for a very large part of our economy. It's something of the order of 10, maybe more percent of the GDP. It has, according to CII, the potential for accounting for more than 50% of the GDP by the year 2024, which is 2 years away. Something close to 50% of the exports of the country come from this sector. And there are something of the order of 120 million people working in this group of industries. And they're predominantly rural. They're in remote areas where they're needed. So these can play a very important role, and I hope that this evening's sessions will be able to explore how we can make them grow and nurture them so that they can really deliver what they are good for. The definitions today are now based on turnover, and they used to be more on capital investment. Now they're more on turnover, and I personally believe that that's not enough. The purpose of this sector of the economy is also to deliver environmental, social, and community benefits that need to be embedded in those definitions. And for example, let's say that a bank is got two projects. Both of them have the same capital investment, the same turnover, but one generates twice as many jobs. Then there should be incentives for that bank to want to support prioritize the one that has more job creating potential. Similarly, green, if an industry is going to have a big impact on the environment, then it should be given preference. And these have to be embedded in the definitions that we're employing in supporting such enterprises. To flourish, MSMEs, using the current lingo, need a business ecosystem in which they can flourish, which means level playing fields, which means that they should be enabled to be competitive with other kinds of businesses. They need infrastructure like every business does, roads and marketing systems and financing systems and so on. and access to skilled people, both at the worker level and the managerial level. So these are really fundamental. We, as an organization, Development Alternatives, has had a formula for this for the last 35 years, which we've employed in supporting small enterprises of this type through our organization, our sister organization called TARA, and we call it TFM, technology, which means innovative technologies. F is for finance, access to finance. We're not a financing agency, but we help small enterprises get finance, and marketing systems, marketing and management systems. TFM is our formula for taking a problem to a solution through the right kind of enterprise. So I can just basically summarize by saying that we need to keep in mind that these enterprises that we're talking about this evening have a tremendous potential for building back better and building a future economy that depends on developing entrepreneurship. And there's no dearth of entrepreneurship in our country. We're running the biggest businesses in the whole world, people from India. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to nurture small enterprises that can go far. I would say that you need to keep in mind the way we prioritize these depends on the indicators we choose. The indicators I think that we now need to bring to the top, in addition to profitability, which any business has to have, is the amount of capital that you use per job, per worker. I think is a very important indicator. And the policymakers in Ministry of Finance should be incentivizing banks to invest in enterprises that have a very low capital per worker requirement, and of course, high turnover per worker possibility, and should be looking at the impacts on the environment, on society, communities, on women, on individuals. And there seems to be in our country a huge emphasis on the word unicorn. Unicorns are defined as startups that become billion-dollar, not even rupee, enterprises within a small period of time. And I think the kinds of unicorns we need are ones not measured by how many billions of dollars they produce, but by how much impact they have on the local ecology, on the community, and on people's lives. So if we keep that in mind, I think the future of India's economy is great, especially if we nurture the incredible strength among our young men and women to set up and run good, high quality, high impact businesses. So I hope we will be able to spend our time thinking through what it would take to make these micro, mini, and small enterprises the backbone of our economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khosla. What does it take for us to make micro, mini, and small enterprises the backbone of our economy? Is the objective, is the outcome that we wish to drive towards the end of the session, sir? Thank you so much for your welcome address. Taking a cue from Dr. Khosla's address, in his remarks, he mentioned about our work with via TARA in supporting micro and small enterprises. Another leg of it is our work in Bihar with the fly ash brick entrepreneurs. We've been trying to promote green economic recovery by supporting the green transition of the construction sector there. We have amongst us a stakeholder who has been a prime catalyst in our activities. May I please call upon Dr. Ashok Kumar Ghosh, Chairman of Bihar State Pollution Control Board, who has been very actively supporting our advocacy technology capacity building sessions. Sir, may I request you to please share a word and also the challenges and the context for the session today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, very good evening to all the participants present here and inviting me for this occasion. Thanks a lot. Development Alternative is active in Bihar since pretty long time. And Bihar State Pollution Control Board is working them proactively. This is a very important aspect nowadays with the changing time. You all know the global population, the growth of the global population. As of the estimates, current estimates, we are going to cross 8 billion on the earth. That is a huge number. In India, when we became independent, the population was 35, 36 crores. And today we have crossed about 140 crores. And for them, there is need for livelihood and there is need of economic growth. They required, but at the same time, it is impacting the environment adversely. That is also the side effect that is going side by side. And as per the estimate, the Earth's carrying capacity, I always say that Earth's carrying capacity is limited. And often I quote Mahatma Gandhi, he said that Mother Earth has enough for human beings' need, but not greed. But as of today, it has changed. Mother Earth has not even for need, not for greed at all, but even for need. It is estimated that to cater our lifestyle and to cater a big population on Earth, as of today, we require 1.4 Earth. And if population growth is continued like this, and our lifestyle changes so fast, it is estimated that by the end of this century, we'll require 4 Earth. So no scientist can create 4 Earth. Out of question. We have to carry forward with only 1 Earth. And we have to sustain our requirements with only resources coming from 1 Earth. We are not going to get some resource from Mars, 1 moon. We have only 1 Earth from where we get the resources. And that is why this topic has become very important, as rightly said by Dr. Khosla, that this is the time when we have to think about MSME to be the backbone of the economy. Very, very important. And this is also important because what I feel as an environmentalist, not as an economist, that if you want green economy and sustainable economy, the change is required at 2 levels. One is the resource material, the requirements of the industry, whatever the size is. Other is the procedure. And for big industries, it's very difficult to change these two in short time. But SMEs, they can adapt fast and they can improvise at smaller level. And that is being done in Bihar that you are talking, the fly ash bricks that we are promoting. There was a time Bihar has 6 thermal power stations and Bihar creates lots of fly ash. And there was a time in Bihar when the fly ash became mountains, a big problem for all the thermal power stations. Today, the thing has reversed. The fly ash has become commodity. And it is in demand in brick industry, not only in brick industry, but also road construction, and so on and so forth. Many demands are there. And for thermal power plants, they are now charging for them. Initially, they are distributing for free. Now they are charging for it. So we thought that we have to chip in because in Bihar, the brick industry is enormous. We have about 6,000 brick kilns of old technology, the red bricks, and the emission was very high from that. Almost 10 to 12% of total emission coming from brick industries. So Bihar started 2-pronged attack on this problem. One was the conversion of the old technology, red brick kilns, to new cleaner technology. And other was promoting the fly ash bricks, in which development alternatives did lots of hand-holding. There were initial hiccups in acceptance of that technology due to our mindset. Somehow in my mindset, brick means red. And fly ash brick is not red, it's grayish in color. So the first thing was the breaking this barrier, the mindset of people, that no, this color is different, but the strength is much better and price is also competitive. This is such a thing, and as of today, we have now about 300 brick kilns. We are not at par with Orissa. Orissa is the leader in this industry, but Bihar is also rapidly following it. And we are promoting fly ash bricks, and we are trying to formulate a policy at government level in which certain parts, certain percentage of the fly ash that is being generated by different thermal power stations, that should be reserved for fly ash bricks. That is a big thing that will control the price. So there are the initiatives that are working on, and as I said, MSME cannot be ignored as far as Indian economy is concerned because of the problem of finance also. There are many industrialists, big industrialists, but they're limited in number, who can go for multi-million crores of investment at one go. And that is, at least in Bihar, what I know, very few people are ready to invest that amount, that big amount, that huge amount. As a pollution control board, I find very limited number of industries that can be said to be big industry. Very, very limited. Some thermal power stations, some cement units, some sugar industry, that's it. So what is the choice? Either we go for MSME where small entrepreneurs can also chip in, and micro add, it becomes macro. That way we can proceed. If we have many micros and we add them together, the collective effect will become macro. That way it is a solution, one of the solutions to promote industry in Bihar. You all know that industrially we are not at par with developed states like Maharashtra or Gujarat. We are still lagging. We have developed roads in Bihar, good roads are there. Power problem has been resolved. Still investment is coming very little longer. And we are trying to cut this blockade of mind that Bihar is also a place where industry can flourish. And we are focusing on MSME first. Because suddenly you can't expect that major industries will come and invest 100,000 crores in Bihar. But at least MSMEs, they can come to Bihar and start with that. We are working with that, and we will seek further guidance from development alternatives, further cooperation with them, we'll work with them. And hopefully in coming years, Bihar will be also treated as one of the good economy state. As of now, most of our agriculture is based on, most of our economy is based on agriculture products. But it is changing, time is changing, and we are hopeful. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ghosh. I will trouble you for another minute, sir. A culmination of a work in Bihar is a toolkit that is an end-to-end guide to any fly ash brick entrepreneur for now who wants to either start a business or expand an existing one. What we realized in our past interactions with the entrepreneurs, both fly ash as well as the red brick entrepreneurs who wanted to transition to fly ash brick manufacturing, was that there was an issue of business and technical knowledge gap. Second, financing, and third was also the issue of there not being any hand-holding agency in between, or the existing hand-holding agencies not having particular resources to take that knowledge forward in a sense of a self-driven guide. We have with us here the culmination of all of those efforts. May I request of all of the panelists, along with Dr. Ghosh, Dr. Khosla, and our CEO, Mr. Patra, to please launch the MSME toolkit. It's a toolkit for facilitating micro and small fly ash brick enterprises. As I said, this is right now for fly ash brick enterprises, but it's highly customizable. It's in 3 parts, the second and the third of which is applicable to any micro and small enterprise as there may be. I would request the staff to please help us out in passing on the toolkits. I'll call Dr. Khosla to please join us in the front. Dr. Ghosh, may I request Ms. Hariharan, Dr. Prasad, Pankaj Gupta, sir, Mr. Nikhil. May I also request Zenith ma'am to be here with us for the launch. Dr. Datta, please join us. We also have Mr. Nikki, who is joining us as an online panelist for the day. Can we please stop sharing the screen and go back to the Zoom call? Mr. Nikki is the Chief Growth Officer of London Club. More on that later. Can we please stop sharing and go back to the Zoom call? Sure.
Actually, I have gone through this toolkit. It is very informative, very useful, and lots of training we have done in Bihar for fly ash brick manufacturers. And they are always at a loss that we don't have a proper documentation. But this toolkit that has been developed will be very useful. Thanks to Development Alternative for preparing it.
Thank you so much, sir. It would not have been possible, as I said earlier, without the support of Bihar State Pollution Control Board. This toolkit is also funded under a project with Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation. So we're grateful for them also for initiating that effort and working with us towards the end. I would now hand over to the CEO Development Alternatives Group, Mr. Shashtan Patra, to take the stage. I'll also call on the panelists for the panel discussion. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Saundarya. Thank you, Dr. Khosla. Thank you, Dr. Ghosh, panelists. Without wasting much more time, it's my pleasure to invite all of you to please join us here. Ms. Hariharan, if you could join us, Dr. Anuva Prasad, Mr. Pankaj Gupta, please, I think, yeah, and Nikhil, Mr. Nikhil Toshniwal, if you could join us. Very kind of you. And of course, online we have Mr. Nikki Sehwani. Thank you all for being with us today. We have all put together, we planned on about 60 minutes to hear the views of the panelists and then about half an hour for a more free-flowing discussion. Someone whispered in my ear that I should try and do my best to disrupt that and to make sure that we get a free-flowing conversation as soon as we can. So I'll do that, try my best to do that. In all, considering that there's a squeeze on time at the end, I think we'll have about an hour and 15 minutes in which to cover the most important aspects of the topic that we're discussing today. In terms of format, what I'd like our panelists to do is to spend maybe 4 or 5 minutes at the beginning. Less would be even better because, hard-hitting points, insights, incisive points that you'd like to make would be of real value to the conversation. Once we've done that, then we'll move on to more interactive discussion on some of the important things that have emerged. It's my duty and my honor to also introduce the panelists. I will not read out their entire bios, if that's okay, in the interest of saving time. But I think it's important for the audience to know that we have an extremely well-informed, insightful, and influential, if I could put it that way, panel with us today. People who have been change makers and who have both the authority and I think the very strong inclination to make sure that the Indian economy can, at least from the point of view of green and inclusive businesses, actually build back better, or maybe build forward better if you'd prefer to think of it in those terms. Ms. Vinita Hariharan, she's the Chief of Externally Aided Missions in the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises and has throughout her career held different positions, both within Kerala and at the national level. And what I found very interesting was that not just in her case, but also in Dr. Prasad's case, both of you have also been associated with civil society initiatives, recognizing the importance of what people can do when they get together as communities and as groups. Dr. Prasad, of course, is the General Manager at the Small Industries Development Bank of India, We've had Development Alternatives, had the good fortune of working with her, I think now for over a decade, Zenith, at least, probably more, in various positions, including the support that you've given to international work that's happened under the PAGE, the Partnership for Action on Green Economy with the United Nations, etc. Mr. Pankaj Gupta holds the purse strings. He's a very important person in our lives, coming as he does from the finance sector. He's the Chief Executive Officer of MUFIN Finance. Again, with a very, very strong focus on new businesses, businesses that can change the economy and how, we can get
I would like to say something. I think it would be a good connect to start with.
Sure.
People might not know about open finance.
Yeah. If you could just give me 30 seconds, just want to make sure we invite Mr. Nikhil Toshniwal. Thank you for being with us today. He's the Vice President, Network and Digital Partnerships of DeHaat. And DeHaat, as many of you would know, is a social venture which has been growing very, very rapidly, is what we know of it. And if we look at, a fairly broad spectrum of economic activity in the rural economy, the rural Indian economy, then DeHaat has been a catalyst in making things happen which otherwise would not normally have done. And Nikki Sehwani, is the Chief Growth Officer of Lane Dane Club. Thank you very much.
Good evening to all of you.
Thank you. I was about to ask for an audio check, but thank you for being with us today. And of course, in the new economy or digital economy or economy of the future, I think the future of work is also changing, and their organization has been instrumental in exploring those kind of possibilities, which of course have a significant bearing on the kind of enterprises that we're talking about and how to make them thrive. So thank you very much. We could certainly start with you, Mr. Gupta, but I'd just like to, by way of framing the conversation, in your opening remarks, remind everyone that we'd like you to keep it short. Please do share a few lines about, your work, but essentially address the question that I think has been uppermost on all of our minds, which is post-COVID or having been hit by COVID, what do you see has changed? It could be for the better. There might be new opportunities that have come up, or there might be challenges which existed and have become even more acute. So how is the landscape changing if we're talking about micro enterprises in the Indian economy? Most welcome to start, Mr. Gupta. Yeah. You'll need to grab a mic.
So, hi, I would like to say here is that, after the COVID, things have, for us, the demand has increased multiple fold. Now, when earlier any micro enterprise wanted to buy a vehicle or an electric vehicle, they were earlier looking at a low size of financing, correct? For us, now after that, it has increased the size of loan, it has increased the size of tenure. It has, normally earlier, we are a leader in e-rickshaw financing. So when we talk about e-rickshaw financing, be it Bihar, be it UP, we have approximately 6 to 7% of the market share in terms of financing of all those products. So we have financed around close to 20,000 electric e-rickshaws spread across 9 states so far in the country. So when we talk about that, earlier we were financing up to 80,000 rupees. Now we are financing up to almost like 1 lakh, 1,25,000, even 140 in case of a lithium vehicle, correct? Earlier, 12 out of 4 vehicles were getting financed and 8 were selling on cash, especially in Bihar. Earlier, now the demand has changed. 60% of the vehicles, whatever is being sold by dealers, require more financing right now. So I think so for us, when I say this, the demand has definitely increased to multiple folds.
You're COVID positive.
I think so. We are COVID positive, correct? Reason being, it isn't positive in terms of this, but yes, definitely whatever our portfolio was there in terms of that time, because of the delay, we had to suffer a basic subvention and an interest loss for a certain part of the portfolio. But definitely, yes, we were able to recover out of it.
Thank you very much for those words. And I mean, for the positive note that you've sounded, I think also embedded in that example is the role that technology plays. And of course, the role that finance plays. And once you get those together, e-rickshaws being a brilliant example of that, there's a transition that can take place from, if I presume most of us here would have been to Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, where we had the old tempos, the ones that would go and make a lot of noise and smoke and, be very difficult to ride in. And it's with great pleasure now that, you go to these locations and probably have, if 20,000 is the number you financed, there must be about 200,000 or so on the roads.
The market size is around close to 20,000 vehicles are getting on road in terms of e-rickshaw every month.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. Thank you also for keeping your initial thoughts very brief. Vinita ji, if we could share your thoughts. There are several microphones here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here. So, talking specifically on post-COVID recovery. Yeah, so post-COVID, like every other sector, I think post-COVID has seen a V-shaped recovery on the whole, and MSMEs have also opened up considerably. I think that stage is over when we've opened up, and I think the entire, coming from the government, I'll speak from the government's perspective and what the government has been doing. I mean, everybody knows about the packages that were announced and the whole infusion of funds that happened, and the emergency response fund, which also the World Bank infused into the Ministry of MSME and the Government of India. So, which actually helped the Government of India to to intervene when it was really required, when they were in dire straits, so to speak. So I think that played a critical role in actually helping MSMEs at least to stay afloat, despite all the horror stories that we could see in the media and all of that, which were, I think, one-off cases. But on the whole, we managed to stay afloat thanks to all the Atmanirbhar packages and the infusion of funds. And post-COVID, I think now the MSMEs are thinking of, moving, in incremental progress from just a break-even to making profits now. And so, and post-COVID is also when we saw, also, I think during COVID also, there was this whole focus on policy responses that, that was a time when we could also think of framing new policies. And that was when the whole definition of MSME, the change of definition of MSMEs also came up. And the idea of changing the definition was also to increase the umbrella, the number of the kind of MSMEs that could come within the fold of the MSME definition as per Government of India, so that larger number of MSMEs can access funds from the ministry. And as Dr. Khosla was mentioning about the micro, mini, and small, so more than, as per the definitions of MSME of Government of India, more than 90% is still micro in India. So we're talking of basically micro when we talk of MSMEs, at least as far as the Government of India's parlance is concerned. So I think post-COVID, thanks to the infusion of funds, externally aided funds, as well as the Government of India's intent and the devolution through the various digital platforms. So it's like the marriage of technology and finance that has actually helped us cope, through the COVID and post-COVID as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. One of the topics we will certainly get back to is how finance for green and inclusive enterprises might be layered. Because at one level, you need micro entrepreneurs need finance at their doorstep, and at a different level, for the government to take large initiatives, you might even need global institutional funding to come in the form of loans. So hopefully we can touch upon how those how we need those layers, but I think more importantly how the layers get connected is a question we might want to discuss. Anubaji.
Thanks for having me here. I'm very happy to see a lot of familiar faces from the vault and various places. So the sectors I work in, of course, the MSME sector is the pivot of our existence, and of course, startups and angel investing and VC funding and all. So with pandemic came a lot of new recalibration in our everybody's lives. I was with the UN Environment those days. Then I resigned and thought of starting an angel platform from Bihar because I saw a lot of people, migrating back on their feet, on in buses and whatever things they could lay their hands on. So started Karekeba Ventures. Karekeba is a Bhojpuri phrase, and interestingly, when I was speaking at Harvard Business School, the dean asked me that is it a Korean phrase or a Japanese phrase? I said, no, it's a hardcore Bhojpuri phrase, which is a lingua franca of the labor class. I'm very happy to see Bihar becoming focal point of the discussion over here because of Devol's various initiatives. So when we talk about COVID and the kind of impact it had on our lives, if we talk about the startup ecosystem, of course, digitization and the virtual presence that was mainstreamed completely. And 2021 was a year, unprecedented year, and Nikhil will surely support me on this, that when we saw unicorns after unicorns tumbling out, and of course, not too many of them would be, would kind of pass the test of greening or inclusivity. However, for becoming a unicorn, you need a big market, and the impact sectors, the sectors like agriculture or education or healthcare, these are the big sectors wherein everybody is a market. So indirectly, directly or indirectly, they are going to create impact. How we are making them more inclusive and more green, that is for different stakeholders to think about. If we talk about MSME sector, there were both kinds of impacts wherein a lot of physical MSMEs suffered a lot. However, government took some timely measures. There was a package, as Vinita mentioned, and also SIDBI rolled out the emergency credit line and a lot of different initiatives for infusion of liquidity in the MSME ecosystem. And, longish moratoriums and different windows were provided so that MSMEs who were stressed would avoid falling in the NPA definition. So those definitions were also tweaked. So thanks to these initiatives, the hardships were lesser than they would have been otherwise. However, a lot of businesses shut shop, particularly the physical ones. Another thing that we saw was digitization, great push to digitization, formalization of MSMEs, particularly micro enterprises. A very big project is on anvil with Ministry of MSME, wherein we are formalizing the MSMEs in terms of their digital presence. Of course, there were different schemes like PM Swanidhi Yojana or GST Sahai, wherein end-to-end digitization was, and now ONDC, which is a platform neutral kind of e-commerce platform. So wherever the industry was, more digital ready, I would say, there the suffering was less, there the readiness was there. However, several sectors wherein, physically the goods and services were delivered, they suffered. However, I can say that with a lot of confidence that a lot of these businesses are coming back on track with the incentives, with the kind of relaxations were provided across the sectors. I can say it with a lot of confidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anuvarji. Let's just move on now. Dehat's experiences over the last
I would love
3
to.
years.
There has been a lot of, I would say, things happened around COVID. So just to give a context about it. So Dehat, our bread and butter is completely relying upon micro entrepreneurship, the people at the village level. So in our model, we digitize the micro entrepreneurs so that they can supply all the agriculture inputs, seed, fertilizers, machinery, finances, insurance to the farmer at the local level. On the other side, we also procure from the ground level and connect it with the larger corporates. And we have been present across 12 states. And when ma'am talked about supply chain, yes, this was the case, right? We were able to see that it was because, as Gandhiji said, everything can wait, but not agriculture. And that was the scenario come March 22nd. And then people are applying for Kharif sowing. On the other side, we have a fertilizer deficit. So everything stumbled at once. But I would say the effect after COVID, I would say threefold effect across various levels. One is on the side, if I talk about the corporates, agriculture has been happening traditionally for a longer period of time. And for a company like Dehat to bring its market space and make people understand that it is very, very important to invest into infrastructure and micro entrepreneurship at a last mile. Because if we are able to solve this at first, we can make sure that we are providing the quality product and services to the farmers. And we saw that the corporates, the methodology into talking to agri-tech platforms like us, when they saw the supply chains breaking down, traditional supply chains breaking down, it was the startup supply chain with new method of pivoting. They were able to see that, yes, we were still able to deliver more than, I would say, 3x of what we have delivered their inputs in the past year. So that was one. And when it comes to output procurement, we procured on average, I would say, 1,800 metric ton per day during that COVID time, while we were having a capacity of around 600 metric ton, this I would say 6 months before. So this is something which was overwhelming, and we were filled with a lot of demand, and we realized that, and this coming to the basic necessity for everybody to get these supply chains being done. So first level was the corporates getting an understanding that it is very, very important to have this bottom-up effect of the, I would say, and a lot of inclusion per se. Second layer is definitely the micro entrepreneurs who are either FPOs, self-help groups, retailers, or aggregators or traders at the ground bottom. And in the regions which we started operating earlier, we are in 12 states, Bihar, UP, and especially Eastern UP, where the digital adoption is being very less in terms of people able to use the app, they are into cash payments. Come COVID, this shifted so well that we are currently having 95% of our orders from those micro entrepreneurs online, right? Our digital payments adoption had been so high that 90% of our payments from the micro entrepreneur or to the farmer are being happening online. So this is, and but the effect is that earlier before COVID, we were onboarding, so there are around 300 micro entrepreneurs who get onboarded as DeHaat franchisee store per month. And during COVID and after COVID, we were having 1,200 micro entrepreneurs onboarded out of 7,000 who apply for it. So we were seeing this thing that people are adopting digitally, and definitely it solved the purpose. It is like in a blessing in disguise, because if you have to scale the impact, you require to have that digital behavior change being done. So that is the effect on the micro entrepreneur. Now going one level down to the farmer community and to the rural society of the rural, I would just use the word curiosity that, when people, unfortunately, they lost a lot of things. Some people lost resources, some lost their family members, the bread earners, some lost their jobs at the cities, came back, the news, hysteria about migration. And then people started figuring out, are there any alternate routes of earning at the local area, even if they are involved in agriculture? And that is the time they grew their awareness that, can I try peppermint in this area? Can I try mushroom? How do I earn? Can I be a drone spray provider and earn? Can I be a banking correspondent? So these are the things which came from farmers. Farmers started asking questions, how they can diversify into allied activities. And that is something which we are able to see that now there are multiple programs running. And with COVID, we saw our theme is seed to market, but with COVID, we saw that now this thing is not push, it's a pull mechanism. So these are three levels, I would say, at the level of corporate, micro entrepreneurs, and the farmer, which we're able to see.
Wonderful. From a demographic point of view, it probably is also the children of farmers now who are in the 18 to 25 age group who are looking for new avenues.
I would say, if we talk about farmers per se, the farmer, the average age is still 45. Right. However, the children which you speak about, those are the people who look for allied activities. Like, if a farmer wants to, if there's a person who wants to order inputs online, not for him, but for 3 others, that for sure is the children, because the new generation wants things in a bit convenience, irrespective of whether in rural or urban. Right. So that is, and I would say that is a part of evolution of the industry as well.
It's a major change that's happening in society. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, 2 or 3 important questions again that we need to get back to. But Ms. Saivani, if we could
sure.
hear your thoughts now on the subject.
So I'll just give you, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks. So good evening to all of you, and thanks for having me here. I'll just give you a quick background on what we do, and then I'll take the question uh, which you asked.
Sure.
Right. So Lending Club is a P2P lending platform. So what we essentially do is we bring borrowers and investors on a platform to help each other in their financial goals. Right. And we do that by, without using an intermediary like a bank, for example. So our process, we are a completely digital entity. So what we do is digital lending, and similarly on the investing side of the platform, it's digital investments. Coming to how we work with the MSME segment is essentially with the the retail merchants and or kirana stores across various tiers. So right from tier one, so towns going right up to tier six is what we work with, and we give loans to MSMEs or these kirana stores, right? So we assess them, and thanks to India's digital initiatives and adoption of UPI, right? So farmers are becoming more aware about technology as well. So they're able to apply seamlessly through their phone, and everything is kind of the entire application is seamless. And we then assess them, and then give them credit in their bank account on the spot. What we've seen during COVID is, so the bounce back now has been really strong in 2022. We did see ups and downs as India went through its waves, but the resilience of the Indian economy has been strong with every wave. So I think after the wave two happened, the bounce back did start happening. The uncertainty kind of surrounding COVID started to diminish, and we've seen continuous growth coming in. So it's been a very positive journey for us in terms of growing our presence, and we've already disbursed a few lakh loans, including repeat loans to these merchants.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. The digital marketplace, I think, not just for buying and selling goods, but also for critical inputs to any business, be it finance or access to credit or information, just simple information, is clearly emerged. I think all of you referenced, the changes that have taken place on that account. Just a quick question. You talked about, the V-shaped recovery. Now, if we wanted to sustain that recovery and, make it a swoosh kind of a thing that goes on Nike, that goes on much longer, apart from digitalization, more finance flowing through the system, what do you think, just very quickly, might be the other drivers, one or two important things that we need to keep our attention on?
One thing that we need to focus on, apart from technology and finance, which are the two main key drivers that are so critical in these times, which I think we've leveraged on, and we've kind of had fair success, as everybody has agreed. So I think the next is the skills, the skilling of the MSMEs, and skilling ranging from expertise in certain sectors like greening, all of that. Apart from that is also the essential financial skills and acumen which the MSMEs perhaps lack in terms of just basic bookkeeping and how to keep their records right and all of that, and helping them access loans better. I think that's a huge gap that we see when we do field visits to MSMEs. So I think that's an area where we're trying to work with the World Bank also in helping them maintain books of accounts in a manner that is acceptable to banks and financial institutions. So I think that's a huge area where the KYC norms are out of the net of financing. A lot of complaints come from MSME that we really can't access this loans. Why do you route loans to banks? But then the government is also they have their hands tied because they need to get their norms right by routing it through the banks and keep their lending above board, so to speak. So I think that's an area where we need to work on.
Yeah. So, as Dr. Khosla pointed out, that when we are talking of MSMEs, it's the 90% at the bottom of pyramid that we should be talking about rather than the bigger of those. So I guess that apart from the skill, information asymmetry, which is there in the system. So even if government has schemes, or even if there are different stakeholders providing different kind of services, so if we talk about those 90%, or I would say that it is maybe 95% or 98% of the entire, MSME spectrum, there a lot of information dissemination is required in terms of what are the schemes available from the government side, what are the stakeholders who are working for them, and of course, knowledge products, that's also very much required. So I think if we can spread the awareness about what is available, different schemes and all, that's also a big piece of work, bringing this entire ecosystem to the next level. Thank you.
Pankaj ji?
I think so. They have covered both the most important aspect. I can only add one thing that, a platform which can talk about success stories to them. People have also have made good, with an example, if it can be shared with other entrepreneurs in the same category, it would help them to probably have a role model, because, a lot of entrepreneurs at a micro level don't have a vision, correct? And that is something which can come from case histories or probably use cases. So I think so that is something which can be done, is that I can think of as of right now. My points are already been taken over.
Thank you. Thank you. If I may step out of the role of moderator for 30 seconds, is that okay? Yeah. Geetika, where are you? There is a platform. We've developed it over the last 3 or 4 years. It's called udyami.in, where the whole idea is, for people to sort of share stories among themselves. Yeah. Nikhil?
So I would at this forum I would rather target a low-hanging fruit, and you would have seen in bits of pieces about the licensing. In agriculture, licensing is with the federal system is a very localized thing, and you would have also have experienced that people trying to gather a certificate that my thing is an essential service or not. There were the cracks. We see still so many micro entrepreneurs, they have everything. And at the COVID level, and during that time, they realized, sir, the department is off. I have my pesticide license being pending. How do I get it? And I would say that while there are so many things being digitized, it's a tremendous job which is being done. This shouldn't be left out. This has to be taken ASAP. That in terms of making sure that if any macro entrepreneur who graduate, who is eligible, he get his license being fast tracked, because at a rate where we are getting also 1,000 micro entrepreneurs coming out, they want to be, micro entrepreneurs in agriculture, they require some license to trade, to buy, and there would be 100 Dehat in the coming 3 years. There'd be, I would say 1 lakh more entrepreneurs. So that is where it is one of the foremost thing.
A food startup told me once that in India, just to sell a sandwich, you require 48 licenses. So.
Wonderful. This is a really great list we're generating in terms of priorities. Mr. Sevani, your addition?
So my view is a bit different. So what is happening is, RBI with the help of NPCI, right, has been accelerating UPI adoption in India, right, both through UPI 123, UPI Lite, and various other, initiatives. So this is really in a way helping, the small mom and pop stores, kirana stores in the hinterland, start adopting and getting digital payments. And with that, what is happening is those are the data points which are used by digital lenders, like us, to give loans or seamless loans or make loan offerings to these merchants. So with all of this happening, we are seeing actually greater adoption, right? So we proactively reach out to merchants and offer them a loan, because we now have data coming in through digital transactions which are happening. So there is much more clarity on the kind of volume which is happening. There's much more adaptability, right? So think India is on the right track and the way everything is being envisaged. And so, and I do concur with some of the points of the panelists, right? We are definitely on the right track to see a greater adoption happening through because of this technology, play happening through various government bodies, and folks like us who are into digital lending being able to reach out to MSMEs and offer them a seamless loan experience.
Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out. In a sense, the ease with which anyone can use data or platforms that manage data become very important. I'd just like to repeat the list and in almost in just one or two words. Skills, addressing the information asymmetry, platforms where entrepreneurs hear about each other and the successes that they've had. Licensing came through as a very important thing, and then how as a nation we are handling data, making it accessible, etc. Thank you very much for that list. This is probably a good time to open out the discussion, and I believe the first thing you wanted to do was to do a poll. Is that correct? So why don't you set that up?
Thank you so much. May I request the IT team to please pull up Mentimeter? We're going to do a small engagement exercise out here to understand as to what we have gauged of the dialogue so far and what is it that we are trying to build towards, right? We would have two questions for you, very general questions. You don't really need to have any background of green economy or entrepreneurship for that. Can I have the first question on the screen, please? Yes. You would have to go to www.menti.com. When you go to the site, you will be asked for a code. Please enter 3432429 and you will get this question on your screen.
It's right up there at the top. So yeah. Menti.com. Hopefully the signals in this room are strong enough for us to handle simple websites. So menti.com. If you are in, it'll ask you for a code, which is 3432429.
And this is the first of the two questions. The question is, what businesses come to your mind when you hear green enterprise? We're not looking for definition. You could maybe talk about or enter in a word or two about any sort of business that you think is green. We have waste management here, agriculture, renewable energy. We're going to have a word cloud out here. You could keep on providing your inputs. Solar energy, or farming is another addition. Solid waste, water, eco-bricks. The cloud is enlarging. I'll take a minute to let everybody pull in the inputs.
A few of those would, I presume, also include battery-powered rickshaws in there somewhere. Renewables, I don't know, it depends on how you charge the batteries. Wonderful. Is it still readable? Okay, it's only on that side, yeah? Because I think it's getting more and more difficult to read. Yeah, it's right up there in the center, and hopefully, yeah. Now that's interesting because we were, and in no way do I want to undermine the importance of what we were talking about in terms of agri businesses, supply chains, etc. But we can see how renewable energy, waste management, solar energy are showing up as prominent. Do you want to do the second question?
Yes. Can we have the second question, please?
Okay.
A round of applause for all of you.
For
please.
everyone's contribution.
For actively providing the inputs, yes. The second question is, what is the top challenge to the growth of such green enterprises? Finance.
That one came right away. It's going much faster now. Yeah, finance and technology. In addition to the big finance that you see in the middle, there are other smaller ones like innovative financing. Might be a few more. Yeah, it's very important.
So somebody has mentioned mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. What we'll do is we'll keep both of the questions open for further inputs. Again, from one device, you'll be only able to provide 3 inputs for the first question and 1 for the other one.
Good. Thank you very much. That does provide a few cues, not just for this session in terms of what we might want to put the spotlight on, but going forward as we hopefully work collectively to create green and inclusive transitions in the Indian economy. There's some pointers there in terms of what's important. We're very thank you, IT team and whoever was responsible for that magic. Thank you, Saundarya. We're very fortunate today to have Dr. Devapriya Datta with us. He is the head of the Science, Equity and Empowerment Division in the Department of Science and Technology. And I just thought, our apologies for putting you on the spot, but just thought it would be extremely useful for us at the Trialogue today to hear your thoughts on the subject itself and what you've heard in the conversation as being prominent. If you could take my place, Dr. Datta, that would be, yeah.
I think, first of all, nothing to apologize because, it is always good to be in the student's chair also because, learning is a part of these things. No, it's fine. I'm fine. I think I can sit here also and talk with the kid. Okay. So I think whatever we are discussing here is an important component of the total resilience systems after this, like the COVID. Because from the science and technological perspective, especially related to the society, this is the crux, like while we are focusing on. We have started a community COVID resilience resource centers. Of now, like in community, which is now the community resilience centers. We have some STI hubs, but like what we are looking into, like 2 things in like as you have discussed, and also what Dr. Kushla started. That the mini, like we have to widen the bottom of the pyramid. So more and more, like as I think Mr. Nikhil was talking about, that in general, the COVID has given a disruption. And this is an opportunity to find a new way of doing business, which is India-centric, which is, like as a part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat, as well as, which includes the 3 axes of the sustainable development. Because I always say that the definitions of the sustainable development goal, when it comes from UN, it is a 32,000 feet view. When it comes at a, Niti Aayog level, it is 15,000. But the real sustainable development takes place at the 10 feet level, and where we are discussing about everything. So this is an opportunity for us to create that sustainable development in different aspects. Like here you were talking about that the job creations, which is an important aspects of the livelihood. But, I just want to bring on the table also the redefining the livelihood for the Indian context. Because the definitions of the livelihood which has been given to us is a DFID the definitions, which talks only about the income, the improvement, and which has been, probably 1991 World Bank, the definitions that if you increase the income, there will be trickle down effect, more and more people will come. And like 2021, there is a report of, the analysis report of UNDP, which says that in that way, the Indian poverty has not reduced, because poverty is not unidirectional, it's a multidimensional. It includes the, the maternal health, the immunity, which is important in the context of the post-COVID, access to water, access to education, access to, the energy and income. So this is now also in the, this gives an opportunity also in terms of the job creations in these different sectors and linking them. And as, like as all of you are discussing about, Mr. Gupta was talking about, the ground level is very, the fertile. We have to, like in one way, like we have to widen the base of the pyramid, because there are many SHGs, there are many FPOs. We have done very well in that directions. How they can be brought into the higher value chain of activities, because then only the total contributions of them to the economy will be more and more. And this is an opportunity also for develop those models, which is India centric, because till now, most of the developmental model we have adapted. Whether you talk in terms of the DFID definitions of, the livelihood, or you talk of, our definitions of any definitions we have adopted. This we must develop, and now it's an opportunity to be like our Honorable Prime Minister's words, to be Vishwa Guru, to show the world. Today morning, I was in a meeting of ARDO. ARDO is in Africa, Asia, the development organizations, which is a Ministry of Rural Development's, the wing. So we're talking about like in some of the technology which has been developed into the RUTAC, how this can be taken into in the context of the African countries. Now, this is a general, way of the Western definitions. You bring technology, do the technology transfer. There is an IP aspect of that. You control that. If that has worked, the world would have been a different place. It hasn't worked. So this is an opportunity for India. What we discussed about, let us bring a techno empowerment model where we do that same thing, technology transfer, but package it with in the context of the livelihood of the people, because ultimately the driver cannot be technology. Coming from Department of Science and Technology, let me say, till now we have used the technology as a gun, not as an enabler and enhancer. And this is the opportunity. This is the, I'm saying at a macro level, because all of you are doing at a micro level, and it is true for any of these things. It has to be seen as an enabler. And in order to do that enabler, it has to be in the context of human being. That's the system of the livelihood system. And if you see in the our country, actually the supply driven mapping we have done. We have agroecological zones. We know like what is the supply. We know we have, the land use, land cover mapping. But when even in a district, district magistrate goes, he or she has to be used to head the 30, the committees chairmanships, which are not linked to the livelihood system, whether the predominant livelihood system in his or her districts. That's the change process. And this is an opportunity for that, to develop a model. And where the other thing is what you are talking about is the innovative business model. The entire focus was probably, again, it's in Western, the prescriptions is profit maximizing, definitely. How you do a balance, especially in the case of this 60 to 70% we are talking about, the balance of the profit maximizations with the, the environmental sustainability, as well as the social, I will say the, like the social, not only the equity, I will say the social self-sustenance. How you can do that, and that can also come as a part of your business model. Can some of the things what you are doing, can some of the next generations can provide the health, at least the para-health visions, para-animal services, and these are the new models we can develop. I think this is my understanding of bridging the gap between the society and the so-called the science. Till now, we have done as an fallback of the 250 years ago that the European industrial revolution's effect, whatever till have you done. This is the time that where we can internalize and can develop our own model and can teach the world. And in that way, we can become Vishwaguru, and there's a big opportunity for us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. That leads us to the last question, that I'd like to pose to our panelists, which is that if we want, I mean, let's assume that micro enterprises are a good thing, right? And we need millions of them in this country, and will continue to need millions of them in this country. Let's also assume that many, if not most, of these micro enterprises have the potential to create jobs, and several of them, can also have good environmental impact. If, in addition to economic indicators, we'd like to look at social and environmental indicators. We also know, and there were, I think, numerous examples given of how the success of these enterprises, the green and inclusive enterprises, depends on an ecosystem being available. And the question to the panelists, therefore, is in that ecosystem, if we are to incentivize good social and environmental performance, green and inclusive businesses, then what should the ecosystem incentivize, or in what way could it incentivize it? Very briefly, if you could, share your thoughts on that account. I'm going all the way back to one of the things Dr. Khosla had mentioned.
Right. Okay.
How do you make job creation a good thing to do, right? Or carbon. If we look at it from the environmental side, how do you make it? How do you incentivize it?
Absolutely. So I think I'll take a cue from what what the panelists mentioned about the platform where you exchange best practices. So I think a sense of competition, which even the government of India has been instilling from the time they've been formulating schemes in the recent past, the competition and challenge method. I think in coming from there, if we can actually have a benchmarking of these MSMEs and you rank them based on various. Right now, what we're doing in terms of incentives is the basic survival incentives, which is definitely important in terms of the subsidies and the financial incentives that we give. But also in terms of performance, perhaps a detailed ranking and a scorecard is important in the entire MSME space. And then see how you can incentivize them based on the performance with reference to various parameters, like Dr. Khosla mentioned about job creation. I think that it's a slogan now at the moment when we say that you need to create so many jobs, and the government, of course, can facilitate only. It cannot create jobs, as Dr. Khosla said. We can create inclusive policies and facilitating policies to enable MSMEs to improve their job creation scorecard. But I think at the end of the day, if we look at a scorecard mechanism and a competition on challenge route, and look at how they are, performing with reference to various parameters, and then incentivize them. That's one performance incentive. But apart from that, I think also to get those MSMEs which are really bottom of the pyramid to a level playing field, I think the survival incentives like financial and all of them would definitely be required. I think that's something that we need to scale up. Government, of course, has subsidies, but I think it's very limited. It's not scaled up so far. And also, I think in terms of the policies, in terms of pushing them, like we have a model building, like for example, a model building bylaws, which was released by the union government, but I don't know how many states have actually adopted them in terms of actually making renewable energy, a percentage of your source of energy should be from renewables. So I think those kind of supply-driven policies are also important to get this whole greening, more ubiquitous and more acceptable. So I think that supply-driven policies, then a competition and challenge method to scorecard mechanism to incentivize performance incentives, and also basic survival incentives. Also, I think the government needs to drive more. We realize that especially for green and inclusive. But I think here I would like to just also mention about the government's efforts to improve the through the CGT MSc, we are actually trying to tag green and women-owned businesses to improve the outreach to women-owned businesses and for green MSMEs.
For everyone's benefit, does that have a full form? CG?
That's Credit Guarantee Trust.
Credit Guarantee Trust for Micro and Small Enterprises, which is
Perfect.
Sidway's the biggest.
The collateral-free,
Telling
loans that we give.
That's a very important distinction I think you made between survival incentives, which might be appropriate, for a certain context or a certain kind of entrepreneur, and then how we can transition to more performance incentives. Thank you for doing that. Anubaji?
So, coming from a finance background, I'll talk about incentive means financial incentive when we see the entire ecosystem. So if you talk about the bottom of the pyramid, wherein your 97 or 98% micro enterprises reside. So when you talk of access to finance, generally for these enterprises, the access is through microfinance institutions because not too many banks are willing to lend to this sector because of several risks associated with these kind of lending. Even banks, even if they are doing it is through SHG model or an MFI model. So eventually the end beneficiary, the micro enterprise, which is actually creating jobs at the ground level, ends up paying a very high rate of interest. Maybe starting from, I would say 17, 18%, going up to 20-25%, even in organized sector. I'm not talking about the money lenders who charge maybe 120% a year. So this is quite ironical that those who can't afford, they have to pay 20% rate of interest. They are the ones who are creating jobs at the ground level. They are the ones who are talking green, who are creating local green enterprises. So maybe if we have a impact measurement and validation matrix, wherein so scorecard or whatever you can name it. However, if you can make finance affordable to these micro enterprises through some kind of mechanism. So I'm sure Pankaj's organization, if you get a support from any mechanism through which you can cross-subsidize your loans for electric rickshaws, I think that'll be a great incentive for you to lend because your loans become more viable because of any kind of cross-subsidization. And also your market becomes very big, right? So I would say that incentive in terms of, financial cross-subsidization for those who are really creating an impact at the ground level in terms of employment creation, in terms of greening the value chain. And if you can develop a taxonomy through which you can design incentives and, either create funds or co-lend or whatever mechanisms, then that will be a great thing to do. Because that will actually give a fillip to these organizations, these small enterprises who are not only, so it's, we often say that it's timely availability of finance, not the cost of finance, which matters to most of the bottom of the pyramid kind of enterprises. But eventually it boils down to, how affordable you are making the finance. So that's where I'm coming from.
Very good. Yeah.
So talking about the ground realities, I would say that yes, financing these segment of people, it's more expensive to probably do it compared to others. Reason being, one, your 40% of your collection would come in cash. You need to have a ground fleet to probably take care of all those issues. Then there is a several layer, and probably I would say with all those provisioning that we do, we define our structure and everything. But there are 3%, 4% people risk, which everybody is paying, and at the end of the day, cost of lending goes up.
Sure.
And when we go to any of the organization, except SIDBI or similar people who are really focusing on towards the impact side of it, for us to borrow money is becoming a much more costlier. People are saying that if you want to lend it to micro entrepreneurs, we are ready to probably finance it. But if you're financing an e-rickshaw guy, we are not ready to give you a borrowing also. So we face that as a challenge, correct? But what we said about that, how we can make it lucrative. So when we talk about our holding company, Muffin Finance, now in Muffin Finance, we have multiple product sides. So we, under the umbrella of MUFIN Finance, there are 5 subsidies. First being MUFIN Green Finance, second being Bima Pay, third being PPI. So we have a PPI license, MUFIN Pay, and we have a bank linked subsidy. We are a corporate BC for 3 companies. And then probably we are trying to build more platform which are to create a social impact. So now how we have designed this entire thought flow is that MUFIN Green is enabling loans to people in the bottom of pyramid, which is primarily towards the income generation.
Right.
The second step, people who have a behavior of paying loans on everything on time, by using a Bima Pay platform, we are enabling that they are able to adopt to insurance and health insurance policy in an EMI mode. Today, when we talk about insurance sector, the issue with everyone is that, everybody wants to buy a health insurance policy, but he cannot pay a 20,000 premium at upfront, especially in a small town like a Chhapra or any specific segment. So that's where we are trying to, where we have a behavioral categorized, we are ready to offer a insurance premium on a EMI. Then when we talk about these e-rickshaw, if they guys have a complete 1-year tenure, we are happy to give them a top-up loan for their vehicle financing.
Right.
So and even in extending it a bit, when we are planning to launch our prepaid cards, the whole thought is that can we give them a card, a credit card, so that they really become the unbankable category, have that credit card with them.
So you're building numbers, plus you're using your portfolio to do things which would have more social.
Rather than cross-selling, I would say that it is the social impact that we are creating. So basically, cross-empowerment. Today, how many rickshaw drivers would have a credit card? No bank would going to give them one.
Absolutely.
But if, let's say, we have a behavior that this guy has paid 12 months loans, why not? At MUFIN Green, if anybody has probably paid the 12 EMIs on time, plus minus 10 days also, we give him a top-up loan of in terms of battery.
Sure.
And in case of any family emergency with 9-month plus portfolio, if he wants to avail a 20,000 rupees personal loan at an optimized cost, we are ready to give him that also.
Great. Yeah. Nikhil, is it okay if I ask you to wait for a second, because we're talking about credit. Ms. Sevani, in Lendin Club, I think that's the whole point, isn't it? Both for investors and for the borrowers, you just make it much more friendly, much more efficient, cost efficient as well, ultimately lowering interest rates. Is that happening? You need to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yeah. So, we've disbursed more than 500,000 loans to the segment, and we've seen, in fact, about 70% of these loans already paid back. And you're right, absolutely right in saying, so what happens is, if the repayment behavior is good, it leads to 2 things. It leads to lowering of interest costs for him, and it also leads to a higher eligibility limit for the working capital loan or that he wants to take. So that's what we do. We see a lot of repeat loans happening. And you pointed out something very interesting, which was on the investment side. So we also get a significant amount of investment from the same merchants. So, and that money is then used to give loans to merchants who actually need them, right? And they get a decent amount of return as well. I mean, higher than what they would get in a bank. So it's a kind of an ecosystem which plays out. So both the investor and the borrowers are coming from merchants as well, right? And I agree with what the panelists said. So, the government will also have to obviously take initiatives, whether it's going to be GST or it's some kind of cross subsidy, which could help, right? Because there's only so much that we can do in terms of lowering interest rates and not going, far lower than that. So that would help. Of course, as some of the panelists pointed out, in terms of policies, or you work or you have incubators, or support organizations which would help, facilitate more of such LGs coming up.
Right. Nikhil?
Yeah, sure. I would love to see the transition, how the word incentive ultimately came out as a cash gradually or the interest rate. But I would say that, when it comes to green and inclusive, I feel proud to say that we put a very conscious effort, and what we have analyzed is that to incentivize someone, either you have a cash for today or the other method is to showcase the prospect for tomorrow. And I'll tell you how we are going at a corporate, micro entrepreneur, farmer level. For a farmer, growing things sustainably is very, very important for a greener, I would say, environment. And hence we propose that whoever farmer who gets to grow things sustainably, be it be doing for zero tillage, SRI technology in paddy growing, we would be incentivizing them with a higher premium when they purchase. This is helpful for them. Now to make it scalable and sustainable for us as an enterprise, for the corporate, we are currently offering and piloting that along with getting you the sustainable produce, A, we shall help you with the traceability, B, you shall get carbon credits, which is again an evolving market. In that case, now a corporate, be it, names of larger corporate like IDC, Cargill, and all of them seem to be interested with the fact that A, they are getting this thing and getting the output which is being sustainably grown. They are able to trace it for a larger market share. And B, they are being able to offset and achieve carbon neutrality. Balancing our incentive out-of-pocket expense to the farmer and for them. From a third angle, a micro entrepreneur. Here, I would say that there's a different angle. It's not just business. For a micro entrepreneur, we feel inclusion is a very, very important thing with the retailers. And so far in the areas where we work, it's a male dominant region. Like, when it is all about seeds, you target male farmers. When it's all about extension, you target male farmers. Hence, there we created a specific program, and we are running a program in UP where if there's a micro entrepreneur, if we provide seeds or advisory and enroll a women farmer, he is being incentivized. How? Just 3 days before that, the micro entrepreneur who registered maximum number of women farmers, we got his and his wife's picture showcased to all our 10,000 micro entrepreneurs. And we saw that, he got that pride, that acknowledgement that it takes guts to come out from this thing. But once he showcased this thing, he saw that for the respect he has given to the women farmers over there, he has got it back from the complete society. And that is where I would say the small things which may be just not cash, not just interest. Apart from that, we do zero financing. But I would say all those things might be a personal perception that has it helped me or not. But these are things which are not all subjective. Like everybody sees that, okay, this is no harm thing. So I would say at every level of farmer, micro entrepreneur, and corporate, this is our contribution to set an example for inclusion and inclusive.
Thank you. And thank you for pointing out it's not just about cash or things that you can measure in terms of cash, but many more. Pankaj, please go ahead. I just wanted to make sure
I just want to add a small instance on the e-vehicle and the e-rickshaw domain. And there were various points which were floating now. So I think so if I try this, most of the things have fitted in well in here for e-rickshaw. Reason being, it has a fantastic green. It was green, but if you look at it, adapted because the economics for an e-rickshaw works fantastically well over a three-wheeler or a CNG person.
Sure.
Correct.
Sure.
So I think so. Adaptation is linkage to the economics rather than to a finance. Yeah. Correct. Earlier, I was part of a manufacturing company which is called as Mayuri e-rickshaw. So there is India's leading manufacturer in terms of e-rickshaw. I was heading growth for them. So I remember they told me when they launched rickshaw in Delhi, they said that they used to park 20 vehicles standing here and there was a bid. Who's going to give a highest bid? He would take that rickshaw today and all paid in cash. So I think so, when we talk about green ecosystem, so the business models which are very effective in terms of creating that income generation or economics really well are going to be automatically get adapted. Sure. Even India has the highest number of e-rickshaw because it was, there were no policies around it for 4 years, correct? So there were no licensing, nothing. For 4 years, all e-rickshaw, when
I think
it was.
it's a very important point you're making. I mean, there will be 4 or 5, maybe 10 or 15 kinds of businesses that on their own will become front runners and in fact can drive the system. So thank you for pointing that out. We're getting short on time. I should have actually invited comments, questions, thoughts, ideas from the audience about 10 minutes ago. My apologies, but the floor is open in case anyone would like to. And if there's a microphone going around, that would be very helpful. Yeah. If you could just share your name, please. I don't think the mic is working, so.
Why is there no established policy and financing for recycled products, for example? Because in the future, these e-vehicles are going to only get more popular, and fossil fuel cars you can take to the dealer and he will send you the new one. But with the e-rickshaws, basically there are no recycling the ecosystem, for example, with the batteries, with the processors, motors, etc. And the same is the case with the other components of the industry. So why is it that the consumption is based, at the primary level, but there is no ecosystem for so because in the future, e-waste is going to be a major hazard as far as
Thank you for your question. Quick one-line response, if it, yeah.
There are policies. Every state has a EV policy, which even goes up till to the at a level of recycling of the lead acid or the lithium ion battery used. So there are policies which exist, but I think so. Lithium has a very availability of cash against it, and lithium, the time hasn't come in yet. That's it.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, please. Bharti, up here in front, or whoever has the mic. So, Soundarya, just check the mic, please.
And Anumaji, you raised that important point of ROI. I think that was a very, very valid, which we've been fighting with SIDBI for a long time, because we wanted the rate of interest to come down for the micro. But the incentives, what we were saying is to give more incentives to women who pay back on time. So that way it reduces the burden. Definitely it's required, and good you raise that point, but it's not really happening when we see that the loans are being given. And the third point, which was on the policy, I think, Koslaji, you raised that point of definition. We've been fighting with the DC's office on this, that when you bring in MSME, we are nowhere. And especially the women, 99% women are also in the very, very, very nano and tiny sector. So we asked for a separate department that for livelihoods, for income generating, for self-employed, and for even professionals who are individuals who are working as a business out of the home, whether it's architects or single women or working for doing service providers, etc. So would you be able to, in the MSME, bring that out? Because I think that's just not been fair post-COVID to make us join the bandwagon where we are nobody actually at the bottom of the pyramid, if you look at it. And if you really want to have that inclusive growth, you have to have a separate incentive or a separate policy for very nano, as he said, or the micro, or tiny we used to have earlier, the cottage or the household industries, etc. So these were my 3 points, which I think, of course, besides marketing is a very, very major issue. Thank you so much.
Any quick thoughts on that?
So this point is well taken, that maybe the vulnerable groups, including women, could not be clubbed together with those who are really empowered. And women have suffered a lot during COVID times. We had a Bharat Mahila Bank, if people can remember, but it wasn't a success. It could not work out. Because when you talk about lending and stuff like that, it has to be, hardcore business considerations that's there. Having said that, it is a lot of incentives for women entrepreneurs are embedded in many of the schemes that are there. For example, we spoke about the credit guarantee fund trust for MSEs. So there, the guarantee fee is less, the amount of coverage is more. So that way, there are in every scheme of lending, many of the banks have specialized scheme. Even in general schemes, there's lesser promoters contribution, a higher debt equity ratio, which is allowed. So there are built-in incentives, and that's why I spoke about information asymmetry when it comes to vulnerable groups, because they don't know what is there in a particular scheme for women or for groups like that. Apart from that, there are organizations like every state has a Women Development Corporation, which has funds for innovation, which has funds for women entrepreneurship and a lot of training, capacity building kind of initiatives. So if you have access to the information that from where you can get this kind of incentives or these kind of concessional finance, then probably it'll take care of a lot of problems, because schemes are there. Of course, I am not able to say with a lot of confidence that for women you can have a very, very different kind of model for financing. However, there are concessions available which need to be taken benefit of. So that's what.
There is one example which I want to say a little on the contradictory. During this Durga Puja, we waived off a processing fees for all women drivers which are coming on board. So, probably our 13-14% ratio moved to 23%. And when we really gone and realized that people has taken the vehicle on the wife name or on the mother name, and practically the impact hasn't come in. Correct. So that's the other side of the story. When the rubber meet the road, these are the issues that we have really faced when we try and implement any policies like this.
So if we talk of gender inclusion, so MSME sector has a very, very large amount of representation of women, because there'll be mothers, there'll be wives, and there'll be sisters-in-law on the board or as promoters, not only to get the benefits, but also because MSMEs are generally family-held units. So I was heading Sidbi Rajasthan, and there, women would come for documentation, and they will come with, this long veil, and they will not face even me as a woman, officer sitting over there. So, I mean, it's very difficult to how to draw that line, that which is a real woman-owned enterprise and which is, for want of a better word, I would say a fake one.
Yeah.
So it's there. And
Vinita, you wanted to say something.
The definition, I think I owe it to her to answer that. So yeah, the definition that happened recently was a sweeping definition, we agree. But I think, as you said, the recategorization and further categorization of these enterprises as women-owned, and at least I can assure that there would be a definite focus on women-owned enterprises going from here, because as part of the RAMP program, which is MSME performance revitalization across board, national, state, and last mile MSMEs, there is a lot of focus on women enterprises. So definition for, as far as women enterprises are concerned, definitely the ministry would be coming up with something very soon. But as you said, there needs to be further categorization within the micro and the medium. I think that's a work in progress. Definitely we'll get there soon. Yeah.
And Stand Up India scheme is there, where every bank branch is supposed to finance one woman-led enterprise. I have myself mentored not less than 5,000 women-owned units. However, after a while, they will say that please talk to my husband.
The ILO, I believe, categorizes on the basis of jobs created also. Yeah, right. Dr. Roche, if you could just wait 1 second. There's a question at the back. In which, okay, you have the mic. I just want to remind everyone that we're into the last 10 minutes. Okay. So please keep your
I'll be short.
brief. Yeah.
So my name is N.K. Jalan. Madam Prasad just mentioned that banks do not finance directly to the micro enterprises. I am told that these institutions who give the loan to micro enterprises, they in turn borrow at commercial rates from the banks. I may be wrong. I think they borrow from the commercial rates. So why can't subsidy can be given to those institutions, interest subsidy, or they are considered as a priority sector, so that their cost of borrowing is less, and in turn they pass on that interest to the micro enterprises.
You mean the microfinance institutions are able to
lower the interest rate.
Lower the interest
Right
rate,
now
yeah.
it is 20-22%, and their spread cost spread is only
Right.
3-4%.
There's a long history to that aspect, which
The history needs to be broken.
Sure, but how to answer this? However, it's not exactly commercial rates. This is lesser than the market rates. However, there are so many tiers involved in the entire finance value chain. There is a bank, and then there is an SHG, and then MFI, and then there's an SHG, and then there is an ultimate borrower. That it goes up and up and up. That's the scene. That's why I spoke about incentivizing those kind of financial models, wherein they are actually creating jobs on the ground and empowering vulnerable sections and giving economic benefits to a very large section of society. So it's very much needed. SIDBI, what SIDBI does is that we have with MFI, so we are the pioneers in microfinance, and also very proud to say that I think 11 small finance banks that got licensed in the first tranche, 10 were our babies. In fact, they were incubated in the SIDBI laboratory in terms of getting their first finance. AU Financier, it's a big SFB now. That was I did their first appraisal of 100 crore. So we kind of cross-subsidize through capacity building initiatives, through equity infusion, through grants, and several other international components that we have in our financial model. So this is how we are doing it. However, there is a requirement to bring down the interest rates at the ground level for the ultimate beneficiary. Completely agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. Zeenat, very quickly.
And might be very naive questions because I'm not a sector specialist or an expert in this arena, but I didn't quite hear the term market development for green. And I know the entrepreneurs go where the market is, they grab the opportunity. But if micro enterprises are a route to make our sort of economy greener, then what kind of support system is maybe required for the demand creation, for the market creation for such enterprises to start sort of developing? And a second question, which is slightly unrelated to this, but related probably to the finance thing, that is there, there's a social stock exchange process that had begun. Is there a kind of a stock exchange process which can generate public financing, like in a great way within the national space, that you could sort of enlighten us?
On the first, Bihar is a great example where the government, Dr. Ghosh and his colleagues, also in other departments, are on the demand side, ensuring procurement of fly ash bricks. But just thought I'd point that out. Yeah.
So one very important step could be certifications. So you talk about organic, but you don't know what exactly this product, whether that's organic or not. So if you have eco-mark or this kind of certifications, that could be a good step for market development. Secondly, mainstreaming will be very important, because to bring down the prices, something which is considered environmental friendly is at times it is at a higher price. So if you mainstream these, increase the production, then probably the prices will come down. And thirdly, a regulatory nudge. That's also very important. Market also nudges in terms of customers. A lot of customers insist on green production practices. So that if the value chain becomes more and more green, that nudge has to come from regulator or marketeers. That's also, I think, very important.
Nikhil, I just wanted to go very quickly, because isn't that more or less what DeHaat does? You're developing the market.
Yeah. So perfectly with respect to market development, I would say Bihar, any of the agriculture, if you go at the ground level, you'll see that the micro entrepreneur doesn't have enough capacity to grow beyond. So what do we believe is that any farmer walking in is their customer for the past 10 years. What is about that? Why doesn't micro entrepreneur doesn't think that he can have 3 more franchisee stores within the same district? And that's what we have tried to do with them, do farmer extension. And then we realized that, okay, you're not eating up my market. You are rather, earlier I had 150 farmers working with me. Now I have 500. And that's a time where he speaks to us that, okay, how could I decrease my working capital cycle? Because he needs to have more capital, but he doesn't. So these are the right questions when he asks. So market development is a very, very key ask. And if you see the story of FPOs, policy has done a lot about FPOs. Where it is being lacking is that the ecosystem, our ecosystem is not as performing well to develop the market for the FPOs. And that is one of the reasons. But so the government and the policy has done its work. So we have the case study where it has worked. We have the case study where it is being needed. So market development is indeed one of the very, very important aspect for it.
Thank you. Dr. Ghosh, my apologies for making you wait. Yeah.
My question is to Nikhil, particularly. I'm following your work in Bihar. And thank you for your decision. I have one question only. The distribution of your activity is lopsided. In some districts, your presence is quite good.
Yeah.
And some of the districts, it is negligible. Your presence is negligible.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what are the barriers, what are the roadblocks, that is the reason for not expanding uniformly for the state of Bihar.
Okay, so while we look at the district, the geography is mass, and at present we are being present in 212 districts. Why somewhere higher, why somewhere lower? So definitely we look at number of aspects, like what is the density of the farmers. So we have also found certain regions where farmers, like sugarcane farmers, we don't deal in sugarcanes. And so that's the reason where we see that our value addition and also for our own sustainability as a business may not be proven in those regions. So that is one of the aspects that do we have a business thesis over there, because sugarcane is again regulated with the buyer. So we don't see our appetite and enough time to prioritize one district, because again, as a startup, we are also having a capital and deciding what right. Second important thing is that even if we have an intent, yet we are not able to get into is licensing. Even for us as an enterprise, it takes 4 to 5 months after we have two dedicated resources to obtain a license from the district departments, be it the fertilizer license and all. And definitely being a VC funded organization, you have to follow the process. Like, we understand that what is the process and what does skipping the process means. But into all our consciousness, we know that we don't want to skip any kind of process. And that as a resultant makes us to, wait and watch. That has been one of the, I would say, reason which we see. So licensing is second. Thirdly, I would say that, oftentimes it's a bit like, again, so in Bihar right now, in this financial year, we are being available on all 38 with certain satellite nodes where we wouldn't be having our own warehouse, but we'll be supplying from a warehouse from a different, and we wouldn't be dealing into fertilizers. So then these are a few things which we step has to take. But I would say gradually, by 2025, you will find us in around more than 80% of Indian districts. Yeah. So again, it's a business. So we need to see that what to prioritize. Yeah, why Vaishali came first, why, Balia later. So. So if I talk about. Correct. So in the Kosi belt, but now you see that, in the Kosi belt, we have 40% of our procurement of paddy around that Kosi belt. So there we might not be present with respect to input perspective, a lesser perspective, but we are working a large with aggregators in terms of output take up. So because that is where we saw the potential, because otherwise the sailing would have been going to Nepal and other regions. So there are a number of factors, I would say. We cannot have a blanket statement, but aspiration is always to grow as much as we can, because there's a market of agriculture in every village, right?
We've totally run out of time. It's 7:30, and the idea was that we sort of break and have enough time for some informal interaction among ourselves. But I would like to check with the panelists if there are any final thoughts that you might have. We could you could share them now. Otherwise, we just move to closure of today's trialogue.
Perfect.
Are we good?
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Thank you so much, because I think all of you added immense value to the conversation and did so in an extremely incisive and succinct manner. So thank you very much for doing that. It says on the agenda here that I'm supposed to sum up. I'm not going to attempt that. I'll leave that to my colleagues from Development Alternatives, who will, I'm sure, put together a good document and share it with everyone who was here. Just a few thoughts. I think one I think extremely important aspect that emerged today was that we need to structure thought and action. And that's where, on a recurring basis, on my sheet here, the importance of thinking both in terms of, actually all three, in terms of the entrepreneur, the enterprise, and the ecosystem came through, very, very clearly. Because we are dealing with different personas when you talk about the entrepreneur. We're dealing with different kinds of businesses when you're talking about the enterprise. And then, of course, the ecosystem has to kick in on many different fronts. So, that being perhaps a useful way of making sure that there aren't gaps and we're covering everything that needs to be done. Just a quick thought on the numbers, because that's where the conversation moved at times from looking at the entire economy, or at least local economies, whether it's state or district or even smaller, to talking about schemes. And schemes, as we all understand, can only do so much. The number of people a scheme addresses is always single digit. It's very rare. There are only a few, very large national programs where the percentage of people addressed by a scheme goes beyond, a single digit. And just to, throw out some numbers, if we are talking about new entrants into the workforce, it's at least 10 million young women and men in a year. Most likely, probably 12 is the order. And if we were to assume that the kind of enterprises that we're talking about, you'll have 3 to 4 jobs created by each enterprise, then we're talking of anywhere between 2.5 to 3 million new enterprises being set up every year. Now, it's a huge number. And if you were to, break that up by, let's say, the number of blocks in India, definitions vary state to state in terms of what a block is, but we're talking about 6,000. So you need 500 new businesses every year in each block of this country. Now, that's where I think all of us need to understand that it's not going to be a scheme or a program or a particular bank, with some kind of a finance mechanism trickling down that is going to make it happen. You need to stimulate, you need the right kind of stimulus within the economy, within the market for that to happen. And the stimuli are, of course, of all the kinds that were mentioned here today, right from information to skilling to credit to technology, market access, etc. So thank you all very, very much for being with us today. At this point, I think I can hand over to Gitika. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
So thank you, Pat, for moderating the session. I should also say that you just came back from an international trip today morning and then came here to do this. Extremely thanks for you. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Finally, we are at the conclusion moment of the great discussion on building back better, driving a green and inclusive economy. This was an excellent discussion and so much engaging that we could not even thought that 2 hours time is almost passed, and everyone was so much engaged into the discussion. And I am feeling so happy to say that DA Development Alternative has been working on these
issues for last more than 2 decades. We are in Bihar working with the fly ash brick enterprises for more than almost 2 decades now. So today's discussion, one thing is very clear that we all the stakeholders, government, state government, central government, private enterprises and private financier, everyone is thinking about the micro enterprise and they are some way they are the future. When we talk about our challenges, currently what we are facing mainly 3 kinds of challenges. I think Dr. Khosla mentioned in the beginning that we are facing the challenges of job, we're facing the challenges of the climate change, and facing the challenges of the resources, which also Dr. Ashok Ghosh also mentioned in the beginning that we are really running out of the resources that we have, and we are currently consuming 1.4 planet currently. So all these 3 challenges, if we have to address, I think, and we all feel like this can be addressed by the local green enterprise. If we can, this local green enterprise can cater the climate challenges, they can cater the resource challenges, and they can create the job and resource efficient growth. So I think this is how we feel that this discussion been so engaging, and it's not the end. This is something that we need to carry forward in all our discussion. We were thinking of having some, creating a platform to kind of bring all the stakeholders together and see how we can really taking it forward. So, and I seriously, I can see that the transition that everyone agrees that micro and mini enterprise can do the great transition. And we have also observed that the audience is so much engaged into the discussion, and we got so much good response in our Mentimeter response. One thing I think I should mention here, that we are also happy to see that all the conversation goes around LGEs, and unknowingly everything comes, the focus discussion comes on the Bihar state, which is something, it happened, and all this, panelists, you refer to Bihar state. Dr. Ghosh from Bihar is here, and our toolkit that we have prepared is also around the fly ash brick enterprises, which focused in the Bihar state. So I think Bihar can really talk about, come forward and showcase their work on LGEs in the like other developed states. Now coming to my sincere thanks to Dr. Ashok Ghosh, Chairperson of BSPCB, for your presence and your encouragement and support to come up with the toolkit that we have prepared. And so grateful to you, sir, to endorse it. And you are here to really release that report. And thanks, really, the great thanks to you. And we'll be continue this kind of our relationship with BSPCB. Very special thanks to all the panelists. Ms. Vinit Hariharan, representative from Ministry of MSME, for your significant contribution. Dr. Anubhav Prasad, representative from Sydney, and Dr. Anubhav Prasad is both from Sydney and startup ecosystem. So you are kind of both. Thank you so much for participating and giving your valuable feedback. Thanks to Mr. Pankaj Gupta for your participation, and you agreed to come in this panel discussion in a very short period of time. Great to have you here. Special thanks to Mr. Nikhil. It was lovely to hear from you. And Behat is also from Bihar, and we are kind of thinking that we should have someone, heavy high tech to talk about the LGEs, and you are here. Thank you so much for your contribution, Mr. Nikki. You also sincere thanks to you, and you also agreed to come to join this discussion at the last moment. Thanks for your contribution. And last but not the least, special thanks to the backend team, the DA team, for all your who has really worked hard for last I think few weeks to make this happen. And thank you all the participants for your very engaging participation. And without you, this would have not been so much, great discussion. Thank you all. I would invite all of you for the dinner. But before dinner, I just want to mention one more thing, that this is a curtain raiser for this discussion which we have today is the curtain raiser for our flagship program called Taragram Jatra that we do every year at the end of the year. So this year our Taragram Jatra will start on 21st of November. That is already advertised in our website. So I invite everyone to have a look and please join us in the Taragram Jatra. There we are having 3 different areas that we are working, all are from local green enterprise. So in Bundelkhand, one set of travelers are going to Bundelkhand to see what DA has been doing for last 40 years there on the agri and smart agriculture, climate resilient agriculture. We also have a community radio program that we want to showcase to that. We are going to Mirzapur for the micro enterprise livelihood, and we are also going to Agra to see the waste management plants on plastic waste management especially. So I encourage all of you to have a look and register and join us in that Jatra. We'll have the culmination of that Jatra on 24th November here in India Habitat Center as well. Thank you so much. Now a token gift to all our panelists. So I request my team to please, yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I know we're getting late for dinner, but I'll only steal a few more minutes. I would request Dr. Khosla and Dr. Shashank Mr. Shashank to please come in the front for extending a token of regards for the panelists and the special guest. The first token is for Dr. Ghosh, who, as I said earlier, has been very actively supporting our initiatives of promoting fly ash pick enterprises in Bihar. So we look forward to the continuous engagement with you and your team. Thank you so much for coming to the event today. May we also please request Ms. Hariharan to come up and accept the token of regards on behalf of the TA team. Thank you so much for coming today, ma'am. A token of regards for Dr. Anubhav Prasad. A token of regards for Mr. Pankaj Gupta. May I please call Mr. Nikhil to come up and accept a token of regards, please? And for Mr. Nikhil who has joined us virtually, I would request Shashank to please, yes, accept a token of regards from Dr. Khosla on his behalf.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for the event today. I hope that you found at least 1 or 2 of the points to take forward too. And we do welcome you to Taragram Yatra. For more details, please do reach out to the team. Have a great evening.
Thank
yes,
you.
please do join us for dinner.